Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. I would like to first give the floor to Dr. Jihad, and then we can move on to our moderator, Dr. Rahman Aktakhaineh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dina. Good evening, each and everyone. It's my pleasure and honor to welcome an eminent professor, Professor Ghaleb Rababah, now at Sharjah University, but still affiliated with the University of Jordan, to this very important session. He will be our note speaker this evening. And he will be addressing a very important issue, a very important topic, and it's really timely. He will be talking about Trump's hate speech. Dr. Aktakhaineh will definitely elaborate on this through his moderation of the session. I would also like to welcome all colleagues who have managed to make it to this important activity. Without any further ado, may I request Dr. Abdurrahman Aktakhaineh, the moderator of this session from the University of Jordan, to step in and proceed. It's all yours, Dr. Abdurrahman.
Thank you very much, Professor Jihad, for this nice introduction. And if you allow me, I would like to start by saying good evening, everyone, my dear friends and colleagues. It is also my great honor and privilege to be here amongst you today and to welcome you to our talk titled An Analysis of USA Former President Donald Trump's Rhetoric, presented by Professor Ghaleb Rababah, the head of English Language and Literature at Sharjah University, the UAE. Professor Ghaleb is not only my colleague, he is also my dear friend. He obtained his PhD in linguistics from Newcastle upon Tyne University, England in 2001. He won 4 research awards, Abdul Schuman Awards for Arab Researchers for Arts, Humanities and Social Sciences, Education 2015, Ami Mahan Research Award granted by IDRC, Canada 2010, and DFG Research Grant 2009, and a Certificate of Research Excellence for 2019 from the University of Jordan. He is a member of the editorial board and a reviewer in many reputable Scopus Index journals. He has published numerous research papers on pragmatics, discourse analysis, applied linguistics, and TESOL in reputable and top-tier journals. He has a solid publication record of more than 63 journal articles, 43 of which are in Scopus Index journals. His Google Scholar I10 index is 26, with more than 1,660 citations. Without further ado, I give you Professor Ghaleb Rababah. Professor, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdurrahman Aktakhaineh. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Jihad for inviting me to present some of my work here at this symposium, or you may call it symposium. Thank you, Professor Jihad. Thank you, Dina, for coordinating this session. Thank you, Dr. Abdurrahman, for presenting me and moderating this presentation. I would like also to thank our colleagues who are attending this talk today. The title of this speech is Hate Speech in Political Discourse, an Analysis of Former US President Trump's Rhetoric. Let me introduce the topic here. Through our words, we can explicitly or implicitly convey our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings. One of the feelings that people express through language is hatred. In essence, hatred becomes more prevalent and intense in mixed communities where people from different social, religious, and political backgrounds live side by side. Hate speech, which is encouraged by social media platforms, is linked to freedom of expression, and this is according to UNESCO 2015. People may mistakenly or actively propagate hateful messages by using their right to free speech. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights of the United Nations, 1966, defines hate speech as any expression of support for discrimination, animosity, or violence based on nationality, race, or religion. According to Erjovic and Kovacic, of course, this is Croatian, these are Croatian names. Hate speech refers to any form of verbal abuse directed towards a certain group of individuals because of their race, ethnicity, religion, gender, age, sex, political views, or any other identifying characteristics. Trump, the former president of the United States, is well known for inciting hostility and unfavorable feelings. Many studies have investigated his rhetorical and persuasion techniques to understand how he got to the presidency. Maclay, for example, conducted a critical discourse analysis study and found that Trump uses language to deliver his ideology and construct reality through social representations. Trump constantly employs us versus them, creating an image of in-group, out-group, and delegitimizing institutional powers and foreign countries. Research has shown that Muslims and Islam have been portrayed differently by various US presidents. For instance, Rico and Devon examined presidential speeches about Islam and Muslims from Roosevelt, 1933, to Trump, 2018, and found that, they found noticeable differences between Trump's rhetoric and that of other presidents regarding the portrayal of Muslims. While previous presidents depicted Muslims as against terrorism and violence belonging to the nation, Trump referred to them as violent, dangerous, and hostile. Rico and Devon noted that Trump's antagonistic and alienating discourse against Muslims was apparent in his debates and speeches. In a critical discourse analysis of 40 of Trump's most controversial tweets against Muslims, Khan and his colleagues in 2021 found that he dehumanized Muslims, portraying them as criminals, uncivilized, and invaders, aiming to destroy America and its people. Trump used his Islamophobia or Islamophobic discourse to create kinship sentiments with his fellow Americans and to paint Islam as an incontrovertibly oppressive and violent religion. The speeches delivered by former US President Donald Trump during his latest presidential campaign, 2015 and 2016, included hateful remarks against Muslims and immigrants. Even though many studies have examined Trump's discourse, none of them has studied his hate speech directed to Muslims and immigrants. Therefore, this study explored strategies of hate speech used in Trump's political discourse against outgroups. The corpus of the study consisted of 450 minutes of Trump speeches, and these were analyzed to explore hateful speech in his discourse. They consisted, of course, we examined 9 speeches of Donald Trump. The framework. Yes,
Professor,
please.
can I just intervene?
Yes, please.
You had a PowerPoint presentation, and it doesn't seem like you're sharing it. Would you like to share it?
No, I'm sharing it.
No, you're not. Would you like to?
No, I'm sharing it. I shared it.
No, I removed it before.
Oh,
so that
you
we can
removed
see
it.
each other,
Oh, sorry. I thought you.
Okay, do you want me to?
No, just a minute. No, I shared it, but it seems to me that share screen. Yes. Share PowerPoint, share screen.
There you go.
You know, I thought it is still shared.
No, it's I
You
removed
can
it
see it right
because
now. You can see it now, right?
yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. The framework of data analysis. Now, here there are two frameworks that we used in our study. Wheelock in 1995 established 4 criteria of hate speech. These are the criteria that we based our analysis on, and to categorize, these utterances or these sentences as hate speech or not. The criteria were as follows: to inflame the emotions of followers. Number 2, to denigrate the designated outclass, to inflict permanent and irreparable harm to the opposition, and ultimately, number 4, conquer. We use this criteria to categorize a particular utterance as hate speech. After identifying the after identifying the utterances that include hate speech, these utterances were categorized into hate speech strategies using Erjavec and Kovacic framework, which resulted from the study that measured the strategies of hate speech in 3 news websites. According to these authors, there are 3 main strategies for expressing hate speech: re-articulation of meaning. Of course, there are 2 that we found in our study, but they suggested 3 strategies. The 2 that we found in our study are, as you can see, re-articulation of meaning. This is the major category, which has 4 subcategories: reinterpreting meaning to exclude a particular group. The second one is reinterpreting domestic political matters and turning them into ideologies based on cultural struggle. Number 3, shifting attention from domestic political matters to personal differences. And number 4, attacking celebrities of well-known figures whose behavior contrasts with the norms. The second strategy that we found in the corpus is renaming strategy. And this one refers to inventing new phrases and terms and using them to promote hatred. Now I will move to the findings of our study. The first major category, we call it re-articulation of meaning. We will move to the first subcategory, reinterpreting meaning to exclude a certain group. Now, the reinterpretation of language and meaning can be a powerful tool for excluding and marginalizing certain groups. Trump re-articulated various meanings during his presidential candidacy campaigns to exclude Muslims and immigrants. By framing groups, Muslims and immigrants, negatively, politicians can shape public discourse, influence public opinion, and inflame hatred towards these groups. This strategy, as you notice, is displayed in this example. Our country, as Trump says, our country cannot be the victim of horrendous attacks by people that believe only in jihad. These people only believe in jihad. They don't want our system. They don't want our system and have no sense of reason or respect for human life. They have no respect for human life. I won't mention who, but some of them disgusted me. This was said in New York City on December the 7th, 2015. The word jihad meant, of course, all of us know, and the dictionary also defines this as it is meant to struggle or to serve a noble cause and not a violent practice to resist other cultures and religion. Trump, however, is using Islamophobic slurs to demonize Muslims and jihadists. Trump redefined jihad to suggest that all followers are dangerous extremists whose intention is destroying the United States. This is done to inflame emotions, spread anger, and stir hatred among Americans towards Muslims and Islam to win the elections. His slanted view of jihad presented a distorted image of Islam, reflecting religious racism. Trump claims that jihadists are anti-American and indifferent to human life, deliberately attempting to portray Muslims as culturally incompatible with American civilization. Some of them disgusted me, Trump stated. This implies that Muslims are a threat to the American society, according to his view. The second subcategory of reinterpretation is reinterpreting domestic political matters and turning them into ideologies based on the cultural struggle. As Rhetoric and Kovacic in 2012 highlighted, one tactic used in hate speech is recasting internal political issues as cultural fights. This tactic seeks to split people along ideological lines and rally them behind commonalities in identity and culture. This strategy aims to redirect attention from political and economic crises into a struggle between people of different orientations. Politicians, of course, can use this to construct a we against them narrative, in which their constituents are depicted as the protectors of cultural norms and their opponents as the evildoers who threaten those values. Trump, as you can see here in this example, says, and I say it all the time, we have people whose heads are being chopped off in the Middle East because they are Christians and for other reasons. They are being dumped and drowned in steel cages. And we talk about my tone, and this is again in New York City. This is part of his talk. Trump's statement exemplifies reinterpretation of domestic political or politics into cultural battle ideas. Trump views Middle Eastern religious persecution as a cultural conflict between Christians and non-Christians. Trump uses strong language to characterize the horrible persecution of Christians in the Middle East to rally support based on shared identity and cultural values. He portrays Christians as persecuted and non-Christians as violent without addressing the complicated political and historical circumstances that cause these conflicts. This redefining of a cultural clash may harm societal cohesion and democracy. We versus them attitude that President Trump fosters may make it more challenging to come to agreement on crucial issues. Additionally, it might lead to prejudice against Muslims and other non-Christians because they might be wrongly held responsible for the violence. However, Trump falsely refers to the people of the Middle East as terrorists and extremists who behead Christians for their religion. His aims to inflict permanent and irreparable harm to the opposition, consequently criminalizing Muslims to incite hatred and create fear among Americans. The third strategy or subcategory of rearticulation is rearticulation of events, situations in domestic politics into matters that concern individuals. According to Rhetoric and Kovacic, in this strategy, political issues are framed in terms of their perceived impact on individual citizens rather than focusing on the broader societal issues or policy implications. By making political concerns seem immediately applicable to people's daily lives and appealing to their personal experiences and emotions. This method aims to rally the audience's support. However, if used to promote hatred and intolerance, it may contribute to social division and undermine democratic values. Playing on people's anxieties and biases can also propagate hate speech. This is according to UNESCO 2022. Political actors can also demonize some groups by framing issues regarding how they affect people. This may create a hostile climate that encourages discrimination and violence towards vulnerable populations. In this strategy, as hate speech producer, Trump shifts from addressing a particular affair to personalizing it and making it sound as if it served the interest of another person. To illustrate, look at this example. You know, the Persians are great negotiators, always have been. And somebody would say that is profiling. Trust me, they are great negotiators. So, and they just killed us. Again, this is in South Carolina, December the 7th. In this script, Trump attempted to personalize the Iranian-American ties. When he spoke about the nuclear deal, Trump referred to the Iranians as Persians, who were good negotiators. He re-articulated the situation into a matter that concerned the Iranians. He ironically called them great negotiators. However, he meant they were cunning and killers. Trump's statement follows the hate speech technique of re-articulating politics into personal issues. Trump points to the tragic killing of an American citizen by an Iranian immigrant and presents the issue as negotiating skill and personal responsibility. Trump is trying to portray Iranian immigrants as excellent negotiators to suggest their acts as part of a cultural or ethnic pattern. He is also profiling Iranians by saying they are great negotiators. Trump's statement shows how the hate speech approach of re-articulating internal political events or situations into personal issues can build us versus them narrative and rally support based on fear and prejudice. This strategy was used a lot in his speeches. Sorry, maybe the third or the, Yes, the fourth strategy used is attacking celebrities or well-known figures whose behavior contrasts with the norms. This strategy aims to label celebrities and well-known people and attribute false stories to them. Attacking celebrities or well-known figures who exhibit behavior that goes against societal norms is a common tactic employed across various domains, including politics, entertainment, and media. This strategy aims to censure and undermine these individuals by highlighting their conduct that deviates from accepted social values and customs. This may encompass a range of transgressions, such as ethical or moral lapses, perceived hypocrisy or deceitfulness, or contentious viewpoints or actions. To illustrate this strategy, we have this example, which is taken from Trump's speeches. He is talking, of course, here, this is taken, he is talking about Republican Senator Marco Rubio, and he says, Rubio, the same thing. He is very, very weak on immigration, a member of the Gang of Eight, totally weak on immigration. How do you solve a problem when you say people can just pour in? Make a speech, not just long ago in Spanish, saying he wants to open up the borders. Essentially, he didn't want you people hearing it. So he made the speech in Spanish. Now, Trump criticizes Republican Senator Marco Rubio, a gang of 8 members who sponsored a comprehensive immigration reform measure in 2013. Republicans, especially Trump, criticized Rubio's moderate immigration stance. Trump calls Rubio extremely weak on immigration. Trump's criticism of Rubio was part of his 2016 presidential campaign strategy of portraying himself as a tough on immigration candidate and branding his opponents as soft. Trump appealed to the Americans concerned about illegal immigration and wanted stricter immigration rules by challenging Rubio's immigration policy, aiming to undermine the senator's immigration plan, which aimed at opening the U.S. borders for immigrants whose presence threaten the Americans. And of course, when he talks about immigrants, he was mainly talking about Muslims. The second major category that or strategy used was renaming strategy. Renaming strategy, this strategy refers to the use of hate speech producers to some invented offensive words that are prohibited or considered taboo because they label particular social groups and use them to avoid criticism. Writers use some words with extremely negative connotations. In various speeches, Trump used several renaming words to describe the people he hates. For example, he referred to immigrants as snakes, and once he, read a poem, and the title of the poem was "The Snake," which he just, of course, he described the immigrants as the snake which killed the one who helped here. Now, for example, he referred to immigrants as snakes and invaders. He renamed Muslims as murderers, criminals, and terrorists. He called Iran fascists, and he called Hillary Clinton as crooked. Hillary Haggray, for example, a researcher said, "We have not witnessed such vile and hateful displays of racism, antagonism, and incivility by an American president in this lifetime," in describing, of course, Trump. The use of direct hatred terms expressed hostility, disdain, or prejudice against certain groups based on race, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexuality, and other traits. These words usually degrade and dehumanize the targeted group. Trump linked Islam to terrorism in the following script. As you can see here, I watched last night, and I watched the president truly that didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know why he was there. He refused, of course, he's talking about Obama. He refuses to use the term radical Islamic terrorism. He refuses to use the term Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, December the 7th. Trump's comment demonizes Muslims. This approach targets those who see Islam as a threat to the American society. It shows a collective antagonism. Trump claims that Obama sympathizes with radical Islamists by refusing to use the term extreme Islamic terrorism, which means that he is in support of using such a term. Trump's rhetoric on this issue marginalizes Muslims and encourages Islamophobic stereotypes. It incorrectly claims that all Muslims are radical extremists, which can lead to discrimination, prejudice, and hate crimes against innocent people. By framing the subject in such a way, Trump reveals his contempt for those or these groups, preventing productive debate and collaboration on terrorism and potentially hurting diplomatic relations with Muslim majority countries. To conclude my work, this research suggests that political rhetoric is a major factor in molding public opinion on disadvantaged group. According to the findings, politicians employ, of course, when he said politicians like Trump, employ rudeness and inflammatory language to gain support and stoke animosity among people from other social groups. The perils of employing hate speech as a persuasive approach are highlighted by examining Donald Trump's rhetoric during 2015-2016 presidential election campaigns. Trump's hate speech encouraged hatred and prompted ethnocentrism by signaling out Muslims, Mexicans, and other immigrants as targets and using using rude language and offensive taboo phrases. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you very much, Professor Ghaleb, for this interesting presentation. It is really lovely, up to date, and vivid with a lot of information. So thank you very much again. I really enjoyed it myself. Please, my dear colleagues, if you have any questions, could you please just click the appropriate button so I can see who is willing to participate in asking Professor Ghaleb. Anybody has anything, please, hands up. Because I have indeed an interesting question. I started with it with my students, and I would like to share it with you again in the first class of discourse analysis. Anyway, we have a participant. Let us see who is she. She is Amal Abu Dalu. Yes, Amal.
Yes, Dr.
Amal,
I cannot hear.
your voice is not clear.
now,
I think there is a problem with the internet connection.
You can go closer to the internet, Amal.
okay, doctor. Is it now good?
Hopefully.
Yeah, it's clearer, but not that clear.
Okay. I want to ask Dr. Ghaleb about something regarding of the discourse of Trump. I noticed that in Trump's speech there is a repetition. Okay. Can I ask you what is the function of this repetition?
Okay. Thank you very much indeed,
Amal.
Amal.
I cannot.
Amal says she noticed that in some of the quotation you cited, as I understood, some repetition, like of his words, of his sentences. Is there any specific function he tried to convey?
No, you mean Trump's repetition or my?
Yes, Trump's repetition.
Of course, he was using this kind of speech or rhetoric. His target, his ultimate goal was to persuade his voters. This was his target. And of course, wherever he goes, he repeats the same thing. And always he was full of hatred to Muslims and immigrants. This was very clear in all his speeches. The 9 speeches that we analyzed, everywhere he was targeting Muslims and immigrants. And he found people who support, of course, his rhetoric and claims. But if there's a repetition in the examples that I'm giving,
no, it's not.
There is no repetition, but these are his examples.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Ghaleb,
for answering. Theme, you mean the theme? The theme is the same. Yes, the theme is there.
Yeah, but me too. I noticed when he said they killed us. It means he was trying to make a surprise or make it more vivid or to make irony that Iranians killed us. Yeah, this I think what she meant, something like this.
Again, Dr. Abdul Rahman, we have in critical discourse analysis, we have something called us versus them. It is we and you. So this is what we call it in critical discourse analysis. We have this kind of framework which was suggested by Fairclough and Van Dyke. We have us and them. So that is why they. So he adopted that kind of discourse or that kind of view, that we and they or them.
Thank you very much for your answer, for answering the question.
Thank you.
Halal Hello. Thank you for participating, Hala, and attending this session. I will see you next Wednesday.
Yeah, okay. Thank you,
It will be
Doctor.
one of the assignments, Dr. Ghaleb's speech about Trump.
Okay.
يعطيكم الف عافية دكتور.
You are doing which course, which program?
Me?
Yes.
Discourse analysis.
Yeah. Which program? English and which language?
Applied English or English language and literature?
Applied English.
Okay.
Yes. Your question, Hala.
I wanted to ask you about. I watched last night, and I watched the president. He used "I watched" and "I watched" in the same sentence.
Yes. This is one of the features of oral discourse. Maybe also your colleague, I cannot remember the name, who asked the previous question. There is repetition. Yes, repetition in the discourse. I can see. Whatever.
Yeah, he used repetition a lot. He used very.
Because this is what we took from. We did not edit his talk. We took his oral discourse as transcribed and we put it in our study.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is one of the main features. One of the main features of oral discourse is repetition and pauses, using hesitation a lot. So we when we speak all the time, because we need to retrieve ideas, we need to get ideas to think and get the words. That is why we repeat in oral discourse. And this is one of the main features of oral discourse, whoever the speaker is.
Thank you very much, Hala, for the question. And do you want Professor Ghaleb to elaborate more, or he answered your question?
No, he answered it.
Thank you very much.
That's clear. Thank you.
Welcome. Anybody else from our dearest colleagues who wants to say something? Because I would like to ask a question myself, but I'm going to leave myself to the end. Dr. Noor Yassin.
Good evening, everyone. يعطيكم العافية.
Good evening, Noor. Dr. Noor. Sorry.
يعطيك العافية, Doctor. Thank you for this very informative presentation. I myself interested in critical discourse analysis, and I'm pretty sure you already know that. My question is, first, what were your recommendations in this study in particular, and how can we connect it to everything happening nowadays? What do you recommend for future studies, something that we can study from the so many speeches that we listen to during this period of time?
Thank you very much. It is a very interesting question. Thank you, Dr. Noor. Dr. Noor is my BA student, my MA student, and my PhD student. Yeah. So I taught Dr. Noor for about 7 years or more even. Thank you, Dr. Noor, for this question. Yes, we have some recommendations. One of what we noticed actually in this, in Trump's discourse is the use of impoliteness. He was very rude and very impolite in his utterances and in his speeches. So I think, and one of the studies that would be of great value is to study the relationship or the correlation between impoliteness and hate speech, to find if there is a relationship between hate speech and politeness. If someone is producing hate speech, is he polite or impolite? So this is, of course, you can, since you we published work together on impoliteness. I think you may think of the same by examining the relationship between impoliteness and using, of course, Culpeper's framework or any other researcher's framework. You can use any other framework in order to examine impoliteness and relate it to hate speech.
Thank you very much, Professor. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ghaleb, for answering the second and third question. So, Dr. Susan Ramadan.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you very much for this quite interesting and informative presentation.
Thank you.
My question is, I've myself considered some of his speeches for a research paper back then during the presidential campaigns. My question is, what I've noticed was that President Trump, used certain type of, very simplistic and certain rhetoric, which was quite welcomed during this campaign in a number of states, especially the southern states of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And in the South, we do know that a lot of people are, not very educated. Their education level is a little bit less than, we would see, in the North. So he actually, the impact his speech has had during this campaign in the southern states, and he won most of the southern states, actually, was quite amazing. So my question is, as you were studying his speeches during his campaign, with all the politics of exclusiveness and the marginalization of Muslims and othering of Muslims and Mexicans and so on, did you notice by any chance any difference, in his speeches, as he gave them in different states, or was it actually, basically the same, the uniform othering and hatred speech, which he, his speeches showed during this campaign? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Susan, for this very interesting point that you raised. And actually, it is a very interesting area of research. Again, someone might be interested in conducting this kind of research to look at the differences, if there are any differences in his rhetoric, whether the discourse is addressing people in the South or in the North. Actually, we did not look at this in our study. We just looked at we took the 9 speeches and we examined the hate speech in these speeches without taking into consideration whether this is delivered in the South or in the North. But it is a very interesting. I think it is a very interesting research topic that might be coming.
Yeah, thank you very much, because I was thinking about you used, or you showed us some excerpts of speeches he gave in New York City and then also in southern states. And we all know that New York in particular, is definitely against, they're encouraging Islamophobia and othering and so on of foreigners. So for reasons we all know, and also the southern states, they have their own reasons. So I was wondering whether there was anything, and whether you
we did not look into it. Actually, we did not look into it. Actually, but as I mentioned, it might be. Thank you very much for raising this concern and this point. But again, this can be a very different study, which may look at the differences in rhetoric. Demographic factors can be taken into consideration. Yes, thank you. again, thank you. I don't want to say anything else.
It is to look at it from if he puts into his accounts that the audience preferences.
I wanted to respond to Noor's question about the rhetoric or the speeches or the discourse that we have nowadays. Don't take
we
anything.
can do this if you allow us, Professor Ghaleb, to take the last, I think, question from Dr. Hiba Jasser. No,
yes,
the last two questions from Dr. Hiba Jasser and Dr. Abdul Khabbas. Yeah, and mine,
okay.
if we have time.
Yes, all right. So there are three, not two. Yes,
Dr.
please.
Hiba, the floor is yours. Dr. Hiba Jasser. So we come back to Dr. Hiba Jasser. Let us take Dr. Ahmed Al-Khabbas's question first.
Maybe the fourth. Okay. From Ayman.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing all?
Hand is up from just I can see Dr. Khabbas and Jasser. Yes.
Yes. Is my voice clear?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Dr. Ahmed.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing? How are you, Professor Ghaleb?
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed.
As Professor Jihad just mentioned, it was a timely presentation, a representation of the hate speech, and I've noticed that in the American presidency, they used to employ hate speech a lot in their addresses, discourses, and their propaganda for elections and such discourses. And I've just noticed even Barack Obama used it in the recent attacks on Gaza, and how he employs these they were terrorists and their self-defense and such stuff. And I think hate speech is it's very much like a comment, not a question, considers as constructs a hard hit to the colonial and decolonial studies and their relationship with acculturation and cultural studies. All those calls for establishing bridges among cultures, among people are fading away and collapsing amidst all those chaotic hate speech discourses that we see here and there. Thank you so much, Professor Ghaleb, for your enlightening, informative presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Actually, hate speech, as you mentioned, Obama has some kind of hate speech nowadays, or so many people's discourse has shifted, and they express actually implicitly their hatred to some groups of people. Again, for example, towards people in Gaza and the jihadists there. But again, I consider these as points of view, and people use these, this kind of rhetoric, this kind or that kind of rhetoric, just to persuade the audience or their audience. Trump was using it just to persuade his voters or people or the Americans to vote for him. Now, for example, other people nowadays are voting and they are against Gaza people because of the political situation. So all the time you find that there is a factor, and there are some factors that force those people to produce this kind of discourse. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for your point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ghaleb. We have Dr. Hiba. Are you back?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
no.
sure.
مساء الورد طبعا للجميع. ودكتور غالب, you have been missed. I've been missing you. الله يعطيك العافية.
Thank you very much.
Well, I had almost wanted to lower my hand because I wanted to comment on, you see, where the point where you said the strategy of the rearticulation of events in domestic politics into matters that concern individuals. You said, I had wanted to ask, what about the quality of individuals, probably being Americans on one side, and also I wanted to comment on Americans being educated, non-educated, and so on. So there's an abuse of the fact that a good part of the audience would just be emotional and follow what he would used to say, especially when he used sentences such as, and they just killed us, and you comment on my speech, kind of thing. So yeah, you probably already answered, like, because there's if has the quality of individuals, or where the individuals come from as North or South, as Americans. Yani, if those speeches were directed or addressed to non-Americans, would they give the same influence or not? And from some of our experiences with Americans, they're very emotional. They're probably, that the Southerns are barely educated, that they would believe these kind of speeches. Oh, this it just goes
So you
along with
mean,
their beliefs, with their
so
norm.
I think maybe he was successful in the north, in the south, maybe because he is uneducated, though he
Mm,
is a businessman. But
yeah,
for me, I consider him uneducated, and maybe
yeah,
that is why he is he was very successful in the south.
yeah, true.
Anyway,
In the
that
other,
might be an interesting area of research, actually. Yeah.
yeah, because but also it kept me wondering when you said that, that he attacks celebrities, based, against those who contrast the norm, right? And then
Yes.
I was just wondering, like, what's the norm? What is,
The
how
norm
can we
in his
measure with
mind.
what?
The norm is in his
Yeah,
mind.
in
The
his
norm is
exactly.
his hatred to immigrants. This is the norm.
Yeah,
You should,
yeah,
as an American, you should hate Muslims, you should hate immigrants, you should hate Mexicans, you should hate everybody except Americans. This is the norm, according to
true,
Trump.
true. Allah
Thank
يعطيك ألف
you.
عافية.
Thank you very
It's been
much.
really
Thank you very
interesting.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much, Dr. Ghaleb. Let us take Dr. Farah Ayman before, and then we finally finish with the Professor Jihad. Dr. Ayman, تفضل.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Ghaleb, for this indeed
Thank
interesting
you,
and
Dr. Ayman. Thank you.
very timely presentation. And also my thanks are extended to Dr. Abdurrahman for doing a
Thank you very
wonderful
much.
moderating this session. It's not. It's
God
more of
bless
a
you.
comment. It's more of a comment rather than a question regarding the first question. I think it was by Ms. Noor about the repetition in Trump's speech. I believe that Trump's repetition was used to serve a purpose, the purpose or the function of persuasion. Because, most of the speeches were actually in a campaign speeches, right? So in political campaign speech, the aim or the ultimate goal is to actually persuade the audience, right?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, so you're trying to persuade the audience towards a certain attitude, towards a certain.
I
Okay,
think, Dr. Ayman, yes, please.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was trying to say that repetition usually serves the function of persuasion. In political campaign speech is probably a special genre of political speech. You're trying to persuade the audience towards a certain attitude or a certain ideology, and so on and so forth. So I think that's probably why he was always repeating the nonsense.
Yes, I totally agree. Thank you very much, Dr. Ayman. Yes, I totally agree with you that one of the functions of repetition, other than retrieving ideas, one of the functions is persuasion. One of my studies was on repetition in Dr. Phil's Discourse TV show, and I recognized 7 to 9 functions of repetition in Dr. Phil's Discourse. One of them was when someone is emotionally irritated. Sometimes when you are when you would one of the aims is also to persuade. Another one is to retrieve ideas. So there are about 7 to 9 functions of repetition that can be identified in oral discourse. And I agree with you that Trump's function was here to achieve persuasion.
Especially given the fact that he was addressing mostly uneducated masses in the South. So he was probably the old adage that says lie, lie, lie until people believe you and start repeating your lies. And that also probably explains why he used a lot of hyperbole in his speech, a lot of superlatives in his speech, and so on and so forth.
I agree with you.
What makes Trump's speeches valid and worthy of analysis is that they usually contradict the old American saying that says you campaign in poetry, but you govern in prose. He actually practiced what he said. He actually delivered on his rhetoric, his hatred speech. Again, thank you very much. And
thank you, Dr. Ayman. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ayman. And I'm really happy to hear your voice after 3 years from the last meeting. Finally, Professor Jihad, could we hear your comments, questions, vivid and lovely ones?
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Professor Rababah, for this very interesting presentation. You alluded to the ideological square by Van Dyck. And as you know, there are 4 components of the square. You focused on one component, that is maximizing the negatives of them, they and them. But you did it in this presentation through examples, illustrative examples, very illustrative examples. Now, the thing is, what is underlying these examples? Is there evidence coming from his speech that in which he justifies this hatred? That is, in other words, put differently, why did he say why he hated this huge audience, varied audience, of course? Did he mention why? That is, this will take us to ideology, not just to the product of ideology, the source of ideology. Did he mention this? And if he did, what did he say exactly? I mean, they always say, they always ask us, why do you hate us? They want us to answer why we hate them. But now the question is back to them. Why did he hate us? Why did he hate the Latinos?
Okay, yes, of course, Trump answered these questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jihad, for this very valid point, actually, and very relevant to the study. Actually, in our lengthy analysis, we highlighted, and I think I mentioned here and there why he hates us, because for him, he thinks that we are the outer group. We are the outer group, and we should not be in the United States. I mean, the Muslims and the Arabs. So whoever is coming from outside should not be coming to the United States. This is one point. The other point is that he always highlights how harmful we are. He, for example, he mentioned people of Daesh. He mentioned people of the Syrians, and who are taking our jobs. And this is what he mentioned. They are taking, the Syrians are coming to take our jobs. The Syrians are coming, and you will come them. And then when they have the opportunity, they kill you. This is what he was trying to instill, or to this is what he was trying to do, actually, in presenting the Muslims and Arabs or immigrants. He was trying, in one way or another, he was trying to display or portray Muslims and immigrants as killers, as terrorists, because of the events that were, for example, happening in the Middle East. Nothing before, nothing in the, of course, he was not referring to the United States, but he was taking the events which were taking place in the Middle East in support of his claims or viewpoints.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I answered your question.
You did. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ghaleb, for answering Professor Jihad's question. And finally, it is, I think, something related to both Professor Jihad and Susan. I think he won the election because of his hatred speech. I think the way that Hillary Clinton used inflation and recession were not that appropriate for those people who are uneducated. Trump was closer to them by saying, as you mentioned, I'm gonna build a wall, stop Mexican from getting inside and getting your jobs. All these were closer to the audience. So I think there is something there with the American people that without hatred speech, you cannot win the election. So Trump used it not because he believes in what he says, but because he's gonna win by the end of the day. This is his ultimate goal.
Just a
so the problem, as Professor Jihad mentioned, they want to know why, because they have it deep inside, all of them, that we don't like them, which is not true. So I think it was a tactic for him using hatred speech in his speech. That's it. Do you want to say anything, Professor Ghaleb, before I return?
Thank you very much. Just if you are done with no questions, I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to present this work. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Dr. Dina, for coordinating this event. Thank you, Dr. Abdul Rahman, for moderating this session. And I would like to also to thank Professor Jihad very much for giving me the opportunity to be here again today with you. Thank you, dear students, dear colleagues, attendees. Thank you all for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, Dr. Dina.
Have a great evening if you have.
I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Jihad if he'd like to say anything. And then
thank you very much, Dr. Dina. I'd like to thank Professor Ghaleb Rababah once again for this very informative presentation, insightful presentation. And would also like to thank colleagues and students who have made it to this symposium or seminar. Just to conclude with one sentence. Professor Ghaleb, this presentation was another plus in our record in Abdul.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And have a nice evening.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Professor Ghaleb, thank you very much for your informative talk. Dr. Abdul Rahman, thank you for your constant support of this association, of the journal, and for moderating today's session. Our lecture will be available on YouTube in the next few days. If any of you would like to watch it again, you can go to our YouTube page and watch it again there on the YouTube page. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
God bless you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.